Hello, and welcome to this discussion with author Bill Boggs, whose latest book, The Adventure of Spike the Wonder Dog, as told to Bill Boggs, was recently released this May. Bill has written, this is his third book. His first book was At First Sight, and his second book, Got What It Takes, was published in the mid-2000s. And this is book number 3, which we're going to talk about today. I would just like to ask if everyone can have their audio muted during the talk. And then what we'll do is, at the end, we'll either, if you'd like to type a question in the chat, I can read the question, or if you'd like to unmute yourself, we could do that for a Q&A period. So first, I'd like to thank Bill for being available at this time to do this talk for us. And how are you today?
I'm fine. I've been looking forward to this, and I'm looking forward to the Q&A. I love, as a talk show host, I've asked so many Qs. I like it when I get Qs. So it's a pleasure to be here. I'm not in East Hampton right now. I live in Jane, my beloved lady, Jane and I, we live in the Springs, and I have been intoxicated with the whole area of East Hampton and Bridgehampton and Sagaponack since the early 80s, when I had a house on Farmer White's farm right there on the beach. And that was, I think, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83. And boy, was it gorgeous. And I'm happy to be a resident right now. Beautiful part of America.
Wonderful. Things are starting to pick up again. I know it's been
good.
So my first question is, we just a little bit of a background on
Sure.
Spike the Wonder Dog was a dog that you owned in the early 1970s, right? A bull terrier.
Yeah, that's right. I had a dog when I went to North Carolina from my hometown of Philadelphia, where I was on a show in Philadelphia called McLean and Company on KYW-TV. That was a station that was located right in the middle of 1619 Walnut Street, right in the middle of the block. In the basement, they did the Mike Douglas show. And by the way, Woody Frazier and Roger Ailes, who was a very young man at that point, they were the producers of the Mike Douglas show. And I was implicated in a show on the second floor called McLean and Company. I was on once a week as Mr. Weekend, and I was the associate producer of the show. And I learned a lot about producing talk shows at that time and watched the host, because it was what I wanted to do, was to have my own show. But only being on once a week, it was like playing for the Phillies, been getting one bat a week. So I made a New Year's resolution to get my own show. I ended up auditioning for an ABC affiliate, WGHP-TV in High Point, North Carolina, which is where the book begins. I went down, and I was fascinated by the breed of dog, the English Bull Terrier, which you may recall Spuds MacKenzie, the English Bull Terrier, or the Target dog, with the red thing on his eye. They're the clown prince of the canine world. They are very, very naturally funny animals. It's almost like having a little person in a dog suit. And so I had the dog, and one day I thought it'd be fun to have him come on the show, and he did. People loved him. And the dog, I could get the dog to not do tricks, but I knew what he would do in certain situations. So I put him on the chair for a while, and eventually, right in the middle of an interview, somebody started yawning, rolled over, fell asleep. People loved it. The guest is talking, the dog is there, and I'm interviewing him. For some reason, there in North Carolina, people love this. So we started doing all manner of things, shooting films with him, videos out all around. And he became a huge star. He got more fan mail than I did. Spike the Wonder Dog. It was called Spike the Wonder Dog. Shortly before coming to New York, in a tragic accident right in front of me, he was run over by a drunk driver at about 40 miles an hour. The guy just kept right on going. It was horrible. So I don't want to dwell on that. But all these years later, when my last TV show, My Generation, went off the air, I had the idea, and I cannot remember, Dino, when I got the specific idea. That's lost. But the idea was, gee, well, I don't think it included G. The idea was, it wasn't just, the idea was, what if Spike hadn't gotten killed and had come to New York with me and became a big star? But not back then when I went to New York in 1975, but in today's, because the book is a satire. Mm-hmm. There's no real value in satirizing life in 1975. It could be done, but it's so much more ripe material now. So that's where the idea came from, inspired by the dog I once had, and we'll talk more about the book, so I don't have to explain anything else. But that's the root of the idea. So it's a good first question.
Why we could. It has kind of it has a 70s flavor as the undertone, but the people that are discussed and the events that are mentioned in the book are of the 20th century later on. And Spike gets into some interesting mayhem, and there's some funny hallucination sort of things along the way. And it was definitely an enjoyable satire. I told Lady Jane that I enjoyed the little illustrations in there. They were very good. And I believe it's coming out on audio soon.
Yeah, the audio book is coming out around the middle of August on Amazon. He will show you an illustration if I can get it up. The book has 18 illustrations. My son's idea. He said the book is so visual, it'd be fun to have illustrations. So, can you see that? Okay, that's when he's meeting the love of his life.
Yeah,
a puppy named Daisy, and
Jacob Below.
Yeah, Jacob Below is the illustrator, and he's right out of an art school in New Jersey. And what was really interesting, was to find somebody to do the illustrations. Last summer, I was at a party in Bridgehampton with Bob Merrill, my friend, and Sharon, his girlfriend. Jane, for some reason, couldn't go. And it was right when I was trying to find an illustrator, and I met, get this, the woman who's in charge of illustrations for New Yorker magazine. It's like, this is phenomenal. I got her card, I wrote to her, she wrote back. She sent me a name of like 5 illustrators. I frantically sent away. I never heard from anybody. And I couldn't get an illustrator. Finally, in desperation, I went on Facebook. It was like nobody wanted to do drawings. I couldn't even get them on the phone. I have no idea why. So I put something on Facebook. I'm looking for an illustrator, and somebody wrote back and said, and I can't remember the name of the school, so I wrote to the head of the school, told him what I was trying to do. He said, oh, that's wonderful. I'll put something up on the bulletin board. And then 5 illustrator kids wrote me back. And then I responded to each one, and none of them wrote back. And finally, Jacob Below, who was a student who had graduated, heard about this and wrote me, and I made a deal with him immediately. And it was great working with him. But the process is interesting to talk about, because you see the illustrations there. It really wasn't that expensive. He was a young guy, right out of school. You would think, oh, anybody would want to put illustrations in a book, but it took about 2 months to get an illustrator, but it's well worth it.
Yeah, it's an animated story, and the illustrations complement it very well.
Thank you.
Is there a section while you were writing it? Did you have any particular situation from back in the New York days that you said, I'm going to elaborate on this in the book, and see if I can bring it to some light, but with a humorous, like a modern touch on it. Like maybe something something's based on a character is based on a guest, or
Oh, well, um, I'm going to read, not going to read from the book, I will if you want me to, but Will Freewald, whom we both know, he and I and you did an event together, wrote about the book. And this is partly an answer to your question. Let's see. Will Freewald said, a compelling personal memoir of the underbelly of local and national television, where I've worked for many years, and fame. One of the funniest books I've ever read, Wall Street Journal. So a lot that's in the book that has the dog, Spike the Wonder Dog becomes a big television star.
Mhm.
His owner, his master, is named Bud. We never get a last name. And he's a talk show host just like me. So the book starts in North Carolina on the show called Southern Exposure, just like my show was called Southern Exposure, just like there was a real Spike the Wonder Dog. So in the course of the parts of the book that deal with the television, the world of television, everything in it that deals with the world of television is memoristic. It is inspired by something that happened. For example, but it's satire, so it's a complete send up. One of the Bud hosts a show called Noonday with Bud. Remember, my show was Midday Live with Bill Boggs. That show. So one of the producers, geez, I really should find it in the book and read it to you. Let me see if I can find it. Ask me, just Phil for a second. I know we're not really in too much of a hurry here. It's the part where, oh yeah, here we go. I found it pretty quickly. Now this is all based on truth. So Spike is narrating the story. That's important to understand. The dog has told the story to me. I didn't write the book. The dog told the story to me. And he's talking about the show that they're doing in New York. Any of this applies to things that I've experienced as a talk show host doing 15 different shows. But this one particularly, the staff sure is scheduling stuff they want to plug, and afterwards hauling home suitcases full of payback for themselves. Absolutely. I saw this happen all the time. Every month there's a plus size fashion segment. And what a coincidence. Erica, that's the producer of the show, just happens to walk away with 6 new outfits after each show. That happen, right? Mort, the kid who's going to win the gold if masturbation replaces the sentence is too good to screw up. Mort, the kid who's going to win gold if masturbating replaces air pistol in the Olympics, puts together a product demo of the new anal care aisle at drugstores. For this, he scores a 6-pack of the new and improved hand job helper and 40 samples of exfoliant cream. But the worst is Gold Farm. This happened. He buys a house in the Vinegar Hills section of Brooklyn, which they say has one of the highest violent crime rates in the city. To hike up his property value, he's producing pieces that make Vinegar Hill look like Beverly Hills. He's got models walking down the street, but you can't see the burned out buildings all around them. The models are carrying giant shopping bags from Armani, Bergdorf's, and Chanel. Like these stores are right next to the bodega on the corner with the bars on the windows. The third time he goes out there, the camera crew gets robbed and beaten. Goldfarb ends up hiding in the van, surrounded by a gang of kids who are whacking the hubcaps with baseball bats like they're auditioning for Stomp. And I have seen, Jane is giving me a cut. Was that too much reading, Jane?
Yeah.
Jane thought that was too much reading, but we have time, right? Anyway, all that is based on true things that have happened on television. The reason I took the time to read it was, I know we have plenty of time. It's not like I'm on some television show. And it's interesting to know that a part of the book is a true satire of talk shows based on somebody who's been on one.
And one of the things, like when I think of talk shows. It's just some of the sequences, not just in the studio portions with Bud and Spike, but just in general out in the streets. It's kind of like not a Keystone Cop type comedy, but just very fast moving, very fast
Oh,
moving. You know,
yes.
lots of you have to sometimes even look at it again. That's why I'd love to. I have a copy of the audio on order. I'd love to just hear the narrator. Who, by the way, are you doing the narration for it?
No, because of the COVID-19, I couldn't go to a studio where they wanted me to go. So a guy who has a very good track record is narrating the book. I think he might end up doing a better job than I would have done, maybe with a slightly younger sounding voice. However, I will be adding I appear in the book as myself. I have a very short part at the beginning and then later on, and I'll be recording those lines on Thursday. That will be edited in. But what you said about the pace of the narrative in the book, I really appreciate that observation, because I wanted the book to move fast. I mean, it's the beginning of the book is not plot heavy.
No.
There's a plot, obviously, and there's something really happens. The dog gets kidnapped. He's in a terrible situation. And by the way, a portion of the proceeds of the sale of the book are going to be going to animal rescue organizations. But the process of writing it, after I finished writing one day, the next day before I began my next day's work, I'd go back and look at what I had written the day before and try to tighten it, punch it up, make it funnier, because the whole thing is designed to make you laugh out loud. So I was always looking for pace, that the story would move along, and appreciate your mentioning that. Thank you.
Well, before we go on, I just want to open the floor a little bit. Does anyone have any questions for Bill pertaining to the book, or
Love Q&A. I
or
love Q&A. I admit it.
or television program, or if you'd like, you can type your question in the little chat and I'll read it. Or if you'd like to unmute yourself, by all means, please do. The floor is open, and I think this is a really good read. I put it on the list of books for the summer for 2020.
Thank you.
Our lists, and we have in the house, although they may be checked out, we do own 2 copies in the library, so there's copies there, and I would think this probably this would make a very good film. This would definitely make a good movie, like with Adam Sandler being involved in there, or one of the very funny, like maybe even a Seth Rogen thrown in there, because that group really is banging out a lot of the comedic films.
Oh, maybe I ought to try to get the book that Seth Rogen has said. That would certainly be the ultimate goal, would be to get some kind of an option deal on the book. It's not easy, obviously. A lot of people are saying you have to get a treatment of what a script would be like, and that's not something I do. I would have to find somebody to do that. But the New York Daily News did say, let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, this New York Daily News said, Spike will keep you laughing and on the edge of your seat at the same time. This one is made for the big screen. And boy, was I happy to get that in a much longer review, obviously. But that's on the back of the book. So Dino, if we get a book deal, you and I are going out to the Palm for a big dinner. Big thank you dinner, sky's the limit if that happens.
I think it's just it has the charisma to make a funny. It's like people. I think people really want to go back to a time when the movies were really about escapism, and this is something that a person can,
Yeah.
if they could probably finish the book in 2 days, like I did, and it's pure escapism. I mean, you've based it on some things of of yesteryear, but it's still pure escapism. So, and it's what people need now, with everything that's going
Yeah,
on.
I mean, a couple of the things that inspired me here. One is uh, the author Carl Hiaasen, who is an extremely funny writer of essentially comic novels, satirical novels, and that's what The Adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog is. It's a comic novel, not a comic book, a comic novel, satirical novel. And Seth MacFarlane's Family Guy.
Mhm.
It's one of my all-time favorite shows. I mean, it has a dog in it. Spike the Wonder Dog is not like Brian Griffin, the dog in the thing. However, the irreverent humor in Family Guy really inspired my writing. I have seen, I think, every episode of Family Guy, and it's been on television 15 years. It's one of my, it is, people ask me what's your favorite TV sitcom. I say Family Guy, and I love, the great shows from the past, but it really inspired me, and it would be great to get Seth MacFarlane to read it. But he already did one movie about a talking teddy bear, Ted.
Yeah, the Ted one too.
Might seem derivative for him, but whom did you mention before would be good? Seth wrote.
Andy.
Adam Sandler.
Adam Sandler.
Ah, that would be good. Adam Sandler.
I
Let's-
mean,
Let's hope we can make it happen.
Sandler has had, in some years, he's had a string of hits 3 years in a row, all top grossing films.
He's
And
one of
they're funny.
one of the top grossing box office stars internationally in the world. He does extremely well. Adam Sandler does extremely well. He does well in the United States and even better, for whatever reasons, in Europe and Asia.
That might be the way to go. I mean, definitely. But I'll keep it on my lists, and I'll look forward to the audio when it comes out in August, and we'll follow its progress, how it goes throughout that period.
Thank you.
And just for the sake of it, you mentioned Will Friedwald before. He has a book, Straighten Up and Fly Right. I just got a copy of that last Monday that came in.
Yeah, I have it. I haven't started to read it yet. Jane, do me a favor, just to get Will's book off the shelf, please, in my closet. I was figuring when I go on vacation, I have a vacation plan. That's my Philadelphia accent, planned. I had a vacation plan 1 week with my longtime friend from the Army, Joe D'Antoni, in Italy, in Giulianova. Right, thank you, Jane. And then 10 days with Jane. So it was going to be like a 2.5 week Italian vacation, true vacation, because the place we go over in Giulianova, I can't get any cell phone on the beach, and it's like the 70s. And so I was going to take Will's book, and that's what I was going to read on vacation. The book is gigantic. I mean, it makes my book look like yeah. It's like, how many pages is this thing? 600. So I realized I have to start reading it soon. Will Friedwald is one of my best friends, and it's the Life and Music of Nat King Cole.
And we lost his brother, Freddie, passed away.
Freddie Cole. Yeah, I have a little bit on my YouTube channel, BillBoggsTV. You know, I don't know if you're aware of that, Dino. I have a whole channel.
Oh yeah, sure.
I've been working on it for like 12 years, putting up videos. And some of the videos go all the way back to like 1970 and stuff I was doing on television then,
Yeah.
and up to my podcast, which we taped a week ago, you know, with Alan Zweibel and Phil Proctor. We've been having a lot of fun with that show, Trap Live. So if you go to Bill Boggs TV, you can see a little bit of Freddie Cole that I shot at ringside.
He used to be on Shelter Island.
Birdland, yeah, Birdland.
Yeah, no, I love the channel. I mean,
Thank you.
I see it. I have it bookmarked, and whenever there's a new upload, like you did a great one with Telly Savalas. I love that one. And then there's a scene where you and Telly are in like a pool hall. He must have been shooting a movie in England at the time. And
Well, I'll tell you what the story was behind that. I think it was like 1976, and Saturday Night Live was going to have a hiatus, and they had a concept for a show called, bad title, Friends, right? And I got to shoot the pilot. It never went beyond the pilot. And the concept of the show is a good show. Being on location with celebrities in their favorite place to be on vacation, where they love to go. So it included Lindsay Wagner, what was the $1 Million Woman, the Bionic Woman?
Bionic Woman, yeah.
Yeah, and she was at the Eden Rock Hotel in Cap d'Antibes. Oh, that was a great day of shooting. And Telly Savalas was in the Knightsbridge Sporting Club in London, and then going around London with Telly. At the peak of his Kojak fame, he was a terrific guy. You know, and Telly Savalas had a master's degree in psychology. He actually was a psychologist before he got into acting.
And I think he told the interesting story about meeting a stranger on the road in the early 50s, and it was like a very twist of fate type of a meeting. But they're all the ones I've seen a few of them as they're uploaded, and I go, wow, you know. I remember, you know, I saw, I think, Joseph Heller, and then you had I got a kick out of the Disco Grandmother. I thought that was great.
Disco Sally and Lawrence Welk. What a combo. His crazy grandmother, who was a habitué of Studio 54, would go in with sunglasses on and dance around. She became known as Disco Sally at the height of the disco period. And we had Lawrence Welk, and Lawrence Welk was really an interesting man. I mean, I'll tell you, he had been on my show on High Point. And so I thought, why don't we get somebody his age who was totally different than he is? So we had Disco Sally meets Lawrence Welk on the show. And he, you know, how proper Lawrence Welk was. He thought she was nuts. That's fun. It was funny.
Yeah, it's a great channel. I keep it tuned on my Roku.
Yeah, Bill Boggs TV. Just type in, click subscribe, which is of course free. Then you get notified every time somebody goes on the channel.
Of the new videos.
We'll put this on the channel. Put this on the channel.
That'd be spectacular. I thank you for being able to give us the time for this discussion, and I thank everybody for zooming in on this call. And if you'd like to see a recap, we'll put it up on the YouTube channel. I'll send it to you.
No, you mean my channel or the library's channel?
I'll send it if you want to put it on your channel.
No,
I could post it too. I mean, we have a pretty detailed channel. It's going back about 10 years worth of.
Oh, please put it on your channel. That would be nice. I appreciate it. So no questions from Joyce or Donna? Patricia, Kathy, anybody else? No questions, huh? Well, I didn't get questions. I got good questions from Dino. Oh, that's it, I guess, right?
Well, let's see. Let me think of another portion that we talked about how the character, well, how the dog came about, the atmosphere, the plot is you could just easily just breeze right through. Um, would you write a sequel to this book?
Well, I'd like to, it would be more interesting in terms of how I spend my time during the day for me to be writing a sequel a couple hours a day than doing what I'm doing now, which is working on book promotion, which I've been doing since end of April. So yes, I intend to write a sequel. I have to factor in the pandemic. I don't think the sequel can, what my thought was that pick it up right where The Adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog ends, when they're back in North Carolina at Christmas time, and pick it up shortly thereafter. But since I'm trying to stick to contemporary times, I have to factor in, and I know what I want to happen in the beginning. I have to factor in the pandemic somehow. But I think, the process of writing, you can't figure out stuff in advance. You can know where you're going, kind of characters. The interesting thing about this was when I first started writing it, the narrator, the voice of the dog, and the sarcastic, observational voice, which has been compared to like Jerry Seinfeld, just came through me. It wasn't a form of humor that I necessarily had spoken in any of my stage shows, like the couple I've done at Guildhall, or was it a form of humor that I had written before? It was new, and that was the first day, Dino. And this morning I was swimming along to getting my exercise, and Spike's voice came to me like on some of his thoughts on the pandemic and people, and I thought, it's churning inside me to start on a second book, but I'm focused on my time. You can always find time, but I'm focused pretty much still on book promotion. But that will happen before this year is over. I will start on a sequel.
There's the other option too. You could take it before the show opens in North Carolina.
No, because Spike's a puppy at the beginning. So it would have to be his parents who appear in the book. Spike's parents have a scene in the book. No, when the book starts, the story starts with Spike being a puppy. It could end, it's an interesting thought, it could end with the pandemic. It could end with where they are, and just when things were perfect, the pandemic started. One way or the other, right? But I don't want to write a book that's set in contemporary times without acknowledging, the pandemic.
Yeah, because
we'll figure it out. Spike and I will figure this out.
And we will look forward to any sequel or any other piece of writing, whether it be fiction or loosely based.
This is it. I'm a writer now for the rest of my life, and I'm going to write a sequel to this book called Spike Unleashed. The Wonder Dog Returns. That's the title. And if we make it successful, it'll be like one long story. And after I'm finished that, maybe I'll tackle something else. I don't know. I love writing. It's like having a movie going on in your head, It's fiction. It's just like having.
Or maybe Spike and Bud can go out into outer space. So we have a pretty big sci-fi club in the East Hampton Library. So maybe they jump on Elon Musk's SpaceX and start a talk show on Mars or something. There's a lot of different ways stories could be taken. I mean, there's also breaking a fourth wall, which you see that a lot in films, but it could be done in books too, where the author Like going way back to Jane Austen, where she says things like, and yes, reader, you know, and she's kind of breaking the fourth wall, addressing the actual person reading the book as the writer. So there's just a lot of different devices, literary devices that could be used, but things can be elaborated on for today's period, definitely. To really,
The fifth book in the series, Spike on Mars. I'll become like Edgar Rice Burroughs and Tarzan and the Ant-Man. Oh, that's funny. That is a book, Tarzan and the Ant-Man. That's true. I love Edgar Rice Burroughs. When I was a teenager, I read every single Tarzan book, starting with the Tarzan and the Apes, the original one. Love those books. I loved his cliffhanger style. He would take you to, there'd be a situation at the end of chapter 4, you leave you hanging, then the plot, then they pick up on something else, then you come back to what was happening at the end of chapter 4 and chapter 6. Very nice structure.
and a lot of his like lands that time forgot books. Those were also,
Yep.
unfortunately, Hollywood had a field day with them, and some of them were better than others, but you know, some of them were very cost effective, we'll say.
And made money. Well, you know, making a book into a movie, it's like Winston Groom, who wrote Forrest Gump, gave us a very nice review. There were always going to be things that are different in the movie than the book. You can't be welded to the way you want it to be. And sometimes the movie is just as good as the book. Sometimes it's better, and sometimes it's way below what you want.
Yeah. There's just a few out there that are like what one would say are just perfect, and The Godfather is one of them.
Oh, Godfather, great.
1 and 2 both follow the book. It's actually 1 and 2 or the actual one book, The Godfather. He split the book in.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Sections.
I always thought it's a shame that Brando didn't agree to be in Godfather 2 for some scene. They had one scene that they didn't use in the original Godfather, but I was disappointed in that. And then, of course, whatever happened with Godfather 3, you know, there is a movie that every red-blooded man in America wanted to see. It came out at Christmas time. I remember I went to see it.
December 1990.
Yeah. I staggered out of the theater saying, what happened? About 15 minutes in, it had like the texture of Dallas, a soap opera. Stuff was going on that never would have happened in the first 2 movies. But then again,
That's Hollywood.
it's just a shame, you know. Robert Duvall was replaced by, who was Eli Wallach? Robert Duvall would have been way better if he had just, but they wouldn't give him the money he wanted. Yeah, it's just a shame. Anyway, Dino, I guess we better wrap it up, pal. You have to have your dinner. You have to have your dinner, Dino.
Yeah, I'll whip something up. I usually,
Sure you.
you'll sometimes. Well, my wife and I will both cook something up in the kitchen there. I think tonight is Tuesday, so it's probably a fish dish tonight. We'll put
Good.
something together.
Very good. I myself had swordfish tonight.
Oh, very good.
Oh, it was excellent. And we have a good fish market nearby. And Lady Jane had scrambled eggs, avocado toast, really, and followed by a yogurt, a popsicle. My dessert was 1 raisinette. That's exactly what I had for dessert. I want dessert tonight, but I don't want too much. I had 1 raisinette. On that note, I'm gonna hang up. Too much information.
Well, have a great night, and I thank you.
I thank you. You're terrific, Dino. Stay well, my friend. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.